This weak, useless-looking man was actually a top-tier healer whose power rivaled even that of the legendary Hero of the Stick. But despite knowing he possessed an exceptional 3S-level talent, his team leader coldly expelled him from the squad, utterly unaware of the hidden truth behind the man's healing ability. Every time he healed someone, it instantly granted physical enhancement, and if the person healed was injured again, the enhancement became even stronger. Yet, blinded by arrogance after mastering their skills, the team believed they no longer needed a mere healer. Ultimately, they cast out their most precious support without hesitation. Not long afterward, facing dire financial hardship, the man decided to risk injuries. As evening approached, he chose to stay overnight at a nearby inn. Born into poverty, the man was deep in thought about how to provide a good life for Lily, when suddenly, another injured man stumbled into the inn, desperately clutching his bleeding wound and begging for healing. Instantly making Lily's heart pound with anxiety. She lit the area with magic, nervously explaining that evil lost limb, charging based solely on the injury's severity. Feya, known throughout the royal city as the Infinite, stood a convincingly feared such high-level ghostly beings and had now come to view the man as a king of evil spirits. They brought gifts and bowed sincerely, acknowledging the authority in front of them, and the next day, someone else came asking for the healer, stating stable walls, and most terrifying of all, a peak-level healing power that could instantly regenerate lost limbs as easily as breathing, a power he considered nothing more than routine. Not long ago, they had believed he was involved in a kidnapping, as elves and humans were not usually associated, but Lily clarified that the man had once saved her life, which was why she lived with him. Realizing they had the wrong person and relieved that only a mild sedative was used, they apologized, but were shocked when they turned back and saw the man completely unaffected by what should have been an elite-level tranquilizer used in the royal capital, something even the most advanced defense spells shouldn't be able to resist. Perhaps, they thought, he was the disciple of a grand magician who had maxed out defense to avoid pain. Watching them bicker about strange theories, the man realized the woman in front of him was from the royal guard, the famed Iron Lady Clary, who offered him an olive branch, hoping he'd help complete her mission, warning that life would become very hard otherwise. Outside refused to talk, willing to die to protect the secret, and rumors were already circulating in the royal guard that he was an accomplice to monsters. The man tried persuading her to stop searching, but Clary began to suspect he was the killer. Just as he thought he'd been exposed, he realized she was easily misled and feared he could become the capital's greatest threat. Billy wanted to plead for him, but knew it would only backfire, so she kept quiet. She hadn't expected to learn anything today anyway, and when the man offered to guide her out quickly, he noticed an extra bed had appeared and decided to stay the night, offering to pay, while she declared she would to contrast her usual calmness and push her romantic agenda. The man then carried Billy back to her room to rest, and when he heard the elf had been kidnapped, he asked if she wanted help finding her family. She was amazed his defense was so advanced and questioned whether someone could really regrow an arm. After all, no healer in the royal capital had ever managed that. Yet now her arm was completely restored, and even the man was surprised at how wild the rumors about him were becoming. When asked why she hated civilians so much, she tearfully revealed her mother was killed just because someone coveted the ring she wore, and none of the people she had once healed dared suffer. The next day, while the man was healing Soya's injuries, Billy tried to comfort him, and just then, Clary returned again, shocked to see her nemesis here. The tension rose as both sides prepared to fight, but did out the royal capital wasn't short of bad people either, and accused the recent kidnappings of being orchestrated by nobles who hid their victims across the world. Though Clary refused to believe it, the man was different. He healed everyone, no matter who they were, and Soya still dreamed of having him heal her, though in this place status meant nothing, but it would still cost energy. Clary mocked her, saying her so-called justice was just a fake mask, and as she was about to attack, the man stepped in to apologize for hiding his identity, explaining he was the person she had been looking for. But Clary's intel had described someone powerful in healing, not someone who trained defense. The man explained he was just practicing casually, though history showed no one had ever mastered two kinds of magic. Now in Beastman territory, he planned to find a place to stay for the night, while she would continue to uphold her sense of justice no matter what. Billy noticed Clary was lost again, but didn't realize she was secretly investigating the real motive behind the kidnappings, and now that Beastman had started entering her territory, she wanted to check if the defenses were truly enough. He didn't hesitate to say yes, and turned to show her around the rooms, not noticing anything useful and starting to think that Soya might be lying, so she made an excuse to leave, only to realize something odd about the way the soldiers were positioned. It was as if they were guarding something. She quickly slipped over to check the well and discovered what looked like a dungeon underneath. As soon as she entered, she saw kidnapped children tied up. Just as she was about to take them away, a man arrived holding a weapon and began attacking her fiercely. After all, nobles never respected the royal guards, and she never expected the Steel Lady to be facing such reasons. As he prepared to kill her, Soya and the main character arrived at the scene, and knowing the enemy's strength, but with no success in begging for mercy, they launched their own counterattack. Everyone expected the healer to fall instantly, but he stood there completely unharmed. Disbelieving, she attacked several more times but couldn't even scratch his shield. As she turned to flee, she tripped and fell, and the healer told her that anyone prepared to be a hunter should also be ready to become prey. She offered treasures and pleaded for her life, but he wouldn't spare someone who had harmed innocent people. He kicked her hard into the wall and explained that he hadn't killed her, and the person standing here now wasn't the real him. Kelly said it was already too late and began leaving his final words to the healer, while the Steel Lady started mocking herself, wondering if she'd give up over just a small wound. He told her not to move because healing might hurt a little. As he healed her wounds, she began to see him as a true hero. Once the treatment was done, she noticed her arm had become stronger than before, finally realizing that he was the one who helped everyone without caring about their status, and that she had always wanted to become a great healer, even though in the eyes of commoners, it was the guards who were called heroes. The healer simply gave her credit for the whole event, and thinking back to her mother's story, she suspected the nobles had caused this conflict. With help from others, the kidnapping was resolved, and when she asked why he helped someone with bad intentions, he didn't offer comforting words, just a casual excuse about paying for lodging. She never imagined that the Steel Lady could actually smile. The same woman who once had no hope in life now believed something good was finally coming. Meanwhile, the red-haired man, having casually framed a poor commoner and thinking the healer was just some unremarkable nobody, couldn't help but feel superior. What he didn't know was that this man was a top healer on par with legendary warriors, whose healing also came with powerful buffs that grew with every wound. After months of training, he completely ignored the healer's silent support and believed all his power came from his own talent, throwing him out of the team without hesitation and even tossing him a coin, arrogantly calling it generous payment. But when that coin touched the healer's palm, overconfident future. Because of the healer, the team had entered the noble's domain, and if they succeeded in their mission, they'd earn 10 million gold. Once they spotted their target, he released his holy sword and urged his teammates to finish the fight quickly, telling the support to shield him. They thought the monster couldn't even break through their barrier, but to their shock, it did real damage. One by one, his teammates were attacked, and to save his own life, he chose to retreat, blaming the team for failing even a basic dungeon. Only then did he remember they had no healer and went to find one in the capital, someone who had never even seen real battle. He was curious why Squad S7 would want someone like him. Even though the team lacked an archer, the redhead felt it didn't matter. But once they re-entered the cave, they failed again and were downgraded to B rank. He called it a noble's game. If you can't win, just quit. At a banquet, he was humiliated and warned that messing around like this would cost his life. Wanting to restore their former glory, he tried to recruit the healer back, believing he'd say yes since he once saved him. So he went to Cloudplane Street to dig up information about the healer and reached Soya's land, claiming to be the former captain. But Soya mocked him, saying she'd heard of his infamous name long ago and now he looked like a clueless girl. When he tried to draw his sword, she reminded him he had no say here. She warned them to leave her territory immediately. Trying to pull rank, he threatened her with his captain status. But Soya was the boundless swordmaster. Knowing the difference in strength, he had no choice but to leave. Then they went to the orc territory and got the same treatment. Leeway said if they dared put the healer in danger, they'd pay dearly, and the same went for all the other factions. The redhead was confused. Why would the leaders of the three great powers protect someone they'd merely kicked out? Trying to find an excuse, he told himself maybe it wasn't the same guy. But when his companion told him to turn around, there was the healer, calmly picking herbs. Not wanting to drag Lily into this, he told her to stay back and moved forward. The healer didn't expect to see the captain here and made up a reason to leave. The redhead said he sincerely wanted him back, but the healer coldly refused. The redhead tried to threaten him with force and demanded 3 million worth of energy to help, but seeing the healer still walk away, he shouted that all the achievements were thanks to him. As he drew his sword to attack, Kelly stopped him with a clean strike. As a royal guard, she wouldn't let him go wild. She said she had to show her wings again, and when the redhead tried to resist, she prepared to lock him up. He blamed his teammate and quickly fled the battlefield. To protect the healer, the three faction leaders gathered for a meeting. Soya sent troops to search for him, but they all came back empty-handed. The other two failed as well. Lily guessed maybe he returned to the capital and hoped that was true, but Lila suspected they were heading to the underground forces, who would do anything as long as they were paid. She feared they were planning revenge against the healer. The underground group had demanded a terrifying 10 million gold just to take action. Lila thought they must have been desperate to come back to the healer, but recently, there was one group that didn't want gold. Only specific conditions needed to be met. And that night, the healer was still troubled by what had happened earlier that day. Lila assumed the man must be worried about the team incident, but he calmly explained it was more like comforting himself, even though the red-haired guy was still the left-wing warrior. And out of curiosity, Bo asked how a commoner like him could even learn healing magic. The man confessed that as a child, he had once dabbled in forbidden magic just to revive someone, but his master caught him and gave him a good scolding. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, and Lila stood up to check, only to discover that the legendary temporal golem had appeared right there, and Redhair never imagined coldly and told to leave immediately. To get revenge on such a heaven-defying healer, he had no choice but to fuse with the golem. But even after being defeated and on the verge of death, the man still chose to save him with high-level healing magic, not just repairing his broken body, but precisely cutting away the parasitic tissue left by the golem. Once healed, Redhair realized how lost he'd become, blinded by money and status, all of it part of a manipulator's scheme. While both men were puzzled by the golem's sudden appearance, the three faction leaders approached the man, saying their people had suffered major injuries because of it. And after seeing the golem's terrifying size and power, Lila guessed it might have originated from the depths of the commoner's district, suspecting red hair had some connection to it. But for now, healing the wounded was top priority, and they could earn a lot of gold in the process. Meanwhile, the mysterious manipulator was admiring his masterpiece, unaware why his old companions had turned against each other. On the healer's end, the number of wounded kept increasing, so he activated a large-scale magic circle. Exhausted from overwork, he vowed to find the mastermind behind all of this, not knowing that every one of his actions was being closely watched, and unless the golem was destroyed, no amount of healing would solve the problem for long. With help from the three major factions, the man healed everyone, and thankfully, no lives were lost. But he realized the golem wouldn't disappear anytime soon, and Lila, with her 1,000 years of experience, warned that unless the mission was completed, they wouldn't be left in peace. The golem would destroy the entire commoner district. The magic core box had vanished 3,000 years ago, so the man turned to face the golem once and for all, and Soya stepped forward to help him, unwilling to watch their home be destroyed. Lila revealed the golem's weakness. Its core must be shattered or nothing would work. The man decided to let them handle the offense while he stayed behind to heal, and gave them all powerful buffs. As the battle went on, their chances slowly improved, and he noticed the golem's attack patterns were basic, urging them to finish it quickly before it became dangerous. But he never expected a child to be in the area where the golem collapsed, and since protective magic can't target someone you can't see, he panicked. Fortunately, the girl was unharmed. Lila wondered why the golem had been especially aggressive toward the man, and upon closer inspection, they discovered that the former team captain had been acting as the host for the magic core. The man told them to evacuate, as staying could give the golem a chance to regenerate, and he wanted to finally end things with his past. As the golem stood again, he began persuading Red Hair, saying he understood why he had been obsessed with money and fame. When he was younger, he couldn't afford to treat his sick sister and could only watch her die. His words enraged Red Hair, and as the smoke cleared, the man revealed that this had been his only plan all along. He raised his blade and attacked Red Hair, not to kill, but to save. At first, it looked like he would spare him, but there was a twist. He encouraged Red Hair to hold on a little longer, saying he would soon be free, then used a surgical knife to cut out the infected tissue and immediately healed the wound with his magic. He wasn't the kind to comfort others, but explained that this was Red Hair's chance to make up for what the commoners had lost, and that now was the perfect time to expose the mastermind behind it all. He thanked the one who took him away to train, saying it was only because of that person's dedication that he could save their future and reclaim justice, though the man still didn't want to leave anyone to die. Finally understanding the healer's true strength, Red Hair apologized and even offered to let him punch him if needed, not knowing the man had already channeled 10 times his usual magic power just to vent his own and the commoners' anger. But out of nowhere, the Imperial Guards arrived and tried to arrest him for damaging property, and the sword at his waist had already been swapped out for a golden pen by the healer, representing the cost of healing and rebuilding. Placing the pen in his hand, their relationship came to an end. Exhausted from all the back-to-back battles and healing, the man could barely stand, but thought having someone by his side made it all worth it. When he returned home, the place was silent and empty, almost like a peaceful ending. Yet unknown to him, a new danger was already approaching.